Hey guys, how's it going? Now, I just made a video about how Season of Discovery in Phase 2 is currently going. We've just received quite a big developer update for Season of Discovery specifically. Quite a lengthy post, it's more retail kind of size worthy, so it's a surprise we're getting this. Now, this doesn't detract away from the video I made already, so it's more of an extension. So I'll sort of go over some of the stuff they put out in the update recently and some of my thoughts on it. So let's take a look. Some of these changes are more of what they do for their phases when they bring in the new phase, like they did for Phase 2. So one of them is the XP buff and leveling, where when they brought in, or just before Phase 2 was actually released, they increased the XP gained. I think it was 50% or 100%, I actually cannot remember now, between 1 and 25 essentially. Now what they are doing is bringing it in very soon. I believe at the time of recording this video, it's happening in the first week of March. So this is coming in incredibly soon. And though this is still classic, what's quite interesting is that we're getting the classic experience, but with a more speeded up leveling. And I think this, for Season of Discovery, I think this is a good change. One of the dilemmas of Season of Discovery, now a lot of people do play alts. I know a lot of this post talks about people leveling their alts, so this makes it more alt friendly to bring them up to scratch to level and actually gear for your raids, because people like running these with multiple alts, which is completely fine. We're seeing the increase being applied to level 1 to 39, but not 39 to 40. Yeah, so it's 100% instead of 50%. So yeah, there's a significant increase. This was coming in Phase 3 anyway, or as it would launch, but we're getting it sooner. Now, why do I think this is a good thing? I made some notes here. So this is still Season of Discovery, so there are certain elements they can make some adjustments to. And the way Season of Discovery is designed is, because of these narrow level gaps, because we have level caps between what was 25, now 40, and going to 50 soon, you have basically every single player leveling within a narrow band of levels, which means you'll have everyone in multiple layers, but in those zones you have loads of people, which is great to see. However, mob tagging is not fun. So when you're competing with low drop items with many people, it gets a bit tiring, and I can imagine if you was alts even more so. Now, how will this sort of play into the increase in leveling? If we think about it, when you're doing your questing and leveling, you basically do all of the quests you can possibly do. With an XP buff, you can be more selective on the quests you want to do. It also means that when you're in different zones, you can level up faster. So you actually have people who are leveling quicker anyway to move past these zones. And you can have people in various multiple zones of same sort of levels kind of thing. So you can be more spread out because people can be more selective on the quest. They only need, in theory, half of the quests they need in order to actually level. So if people don't want to do that collection quest or mob tagging, where you need to get 3 of an item and you need to kill what ends up being 100 of these mobs, you could probably skip that and do something else to get you that experience. So you don't have to collect everything. You can be significantly more selective, and in theory, in my theory anyway, you'll have less players on that particular quest that wants to do it. So that's in theory anyway, but probably everyone just goes for everything anyway, just goes a level significantly quicker. And you're less likely to run out of quests as well, which is something I do find in Classic is you get to a point where you kind of start running out of quests, or there's not enough of them to sufficiently level comfortably. You start having to do these annoying quests which has really low drop rates or really low spawn rates. So this will adjust so you can get to the next zone before you start tackling those. That's my opinion anyway. But also inversely affected when you have such a low level cap. It means when people reach those levels, they're effectively endgaming, so they'll be farming, they'll have a lot more gold compared to people starting out. It allows people to narrow that gap. Now, you still have to work for it. You still have to earn your stuff. So it doesn't make anything easier. As long as they don't adjust any of the combat or battle-oriented stuff or balances, that's completely fine. So mobs will still hit you very hard. The drop rates are still particularly low. So you still have to work for it. That still needs to be there. But in order to narrow the gap in getting to that end game, I think that'll be really good. And like I say, for leveling as well, it just feels smoother for the way Season Discovery is actually designed. Another odd one is they're increasing the base gold reward from the quest from 1 to 39. I don't know how much I agree with that, but that almost feels like a response to what I said. Because of the low level caps and people spending time on that, they've been able to farm gold. So being able to sort of close that ceiling, and not to mention the stuff on the auction house is quite expensive for what they are. So in a way, this hopefully will allow people to buy some of that gear. Because in the leveling stages, craft gear makes a lot of sense, and any sort of bind and equip drops is helpful. And I don't think it's in this post, but what they're doing, oh yeah, it is in this post. They're making the initial racial mounts and I presume the skill as well, to be about halved. So they're getting people access to, be able to acquire them significantly quicker. So that one I'm not so bothered by. When I was doing Ashen Vale, the PvP event, because I don't have a mount yet, and a couple of players didn't, but you had a lot of people that did, they were able to get to the next destination quicker and kill those PvP bosses before I even got a chance to enter that area. So this gives people, it narrows that gap, because just because someone got there faster and killed those bosses doesn't necessarily mean I didn't have the opportunity to able to do that, because otherwise the adverse effect is I just camped at that spot, which isn't really participating in the spirit of that event. You really want to go around actually doing it, not just camp at the end zone. So this helps with people participate in the event more in terms of the spirit of things, so they can actually get to one place to another without having to be at the very end. So it has its positives, really. A major one, and this is something I'll be talking about with a couple of people, which is about the 40-man raids. Now, before I talk about the level 50 experience, this one's a major talking point, was because it is Season Discovery, because they've made quite a lot of changes, I believe, in my opinion, a number of adjustments can be quality of life. Now, going from 40 to 20 players is actually quite a big boon, because we have to kind of think about, though they have stated that Season Discovery is a time-limited thing, I think it'll last longer than that actually, it'll still be around for some time. And to spend most of your time looking for 40 people as opposed to getting less players to group in and actually participate and do it within that limited time frame, I think that's a big positive actually, to 20 players. I would have preferred maybe 15. One of the big boons of having more than 10, and it's quite a surprise they went to jump from 10 to 20, is that you can actually have a more larger sort of roster of players for buffs. But we don't know what runes we're getting for additional specs and classes, and how that's going to integrate with what sort of composition you want. You may get mage healing, for example, having more specific buffs that are desirable. But if you're only going to have 2 healers, who are you going to really pick from that? So having 4 healers, so you have your options. If you want your priest, you want your paladin, you want your druid, you want your shaman, you've got your mage healer as well. So it allows for more flexible compositions without leaving people out. So I think 15 or 20, but in this case I've gone with 20 to be ideal, without having a lack of surplus of players in order to participate. So it seems like they're going to be taking the time to tweak a number, if not all, of the the 40 man race to become 20 man, starting with Molten Core. So we'll see how it goes from there. But in the next phase, in phase 3, that specific endgame raid will be 20 player as well. That's the one I'm more surprised with, because the first 2 raids are 10 man, so they're jumping to 20 immediately. So I'm guessing the runes they're going to be adding and going to be adding more diversity into your composition, so you can be more flexible who you want to bring. Which, from the looks and reads of this, it seemed like they do want to spend time in the itemization stages. So let's say level 60 here. It does allow for more flexible and more forgiving composition when you have it to 20 as opposed to the 10 currently is. So we're going to the itemizations now. This is more targeting the level 60. There might be some truth to this with the level 50, we'll have to see. But one of the things I really like about the itemization of Season Discovery, at least from phase 2, is the inclusion of proper statted gear for like spell power that really wasn't that much in the classic era in the earlier levels. So you relied on your spell rank to really do that extra damage, and some of the effects from your talents had on those spells really. But to have your spells just have more oomph behind them, I would say will bring up some of the specs to shine a bit more with their effects. And I'm hoping that we see that here. And depending on the gearing, it may make some specs really like come out more. So we'll see how that goes. So the reason why I say that is they say that they have a ton of exciting playstyle that are new or were traditionally seen as off specs that have been given life in Season Discovery and will come into their full power at 60. So some of the unconventional specs that we have seen in the past, no one really played that in PvE because it just wasn't strong. It wasn't particularly useful. And with some of the runes and some of the changes they made some of the specs have functions that apply more generally speaking. So, for example, with Frost Mage, its strengths lied into the fact that you could chill and freeze your enemies, which doesn't work on bosses. So if they can have a transformative effect on existing skills that still keeps the same essence but allows specs that otherwise wouldn't have functioned in generally speaking to work and bring about their strengths, that's what I'm excited to see there. And it feels like the developers that handle Season Discovery are the people that have complained to Blizzard about certain balance and spec functionality in modern retail Warcraft. So it seems like they have really listened, but also bear in mind what actually happens. So if they make, for example, Frost Mage functional in level 60 on bosses, That'll be interesting. That'll be very interesting, because that makes Frost possibly on par, but maybe stronger than Fire Mage in the essence of being significantly more mana efficient, at least the way it is now. But it would also benefit Healing Mage as well, at least the way it is. And they seem to be adjusting the way the loot is handled in the upcoming raids. So it seems like however they're going to be tuning it, they're going to tune it according to what you're doing, what raid it is, what encounters we're doing. So this will be an interesting thing to see when we get there. So apparently they're considering we're in a midpoint of Phase 2, but Phase 2's barely been out. So maybe they're bringing Phase 3 forward. Now, why would that be? If they have a roadmap. Now, for people who don't know, Blizzard has undergone some layoffs, and I'm strongly under the impression that those layoffs has affected both roadmaps for Modern Retail and Classic, for all of Classic. So they're probably bringing it forward, Phase 3 forward, in order to possibly alleviate the fact that Phase 2 didn't really bring about a lot of content, but also to not have those releases conflicting with a major patch or content drop. So just bringing in Phase 3 sooner possibly means that all of the next phases are brought in closer as well to this point in time, to not have conflicting schedules. I think having alternate schedules is better and probably good for Blizzard. Having conflicting schedules isn't good. There's still a large amount of players that play both and want to do both Modern Retail and Season of Discovery. Or they have more in plan and they want to add more content. If so, I'm all for it.